One-on-One, the show dedicated to business and the entrepreneurs and leaders that start, run, and own the innovative and interesting companies in our area. I'm your host, Alex Ruggieri. Today's guest is Jim Schultz. Jim's passion for entrepreneurship and building businesses was born of lessons learned within a family of global entrepreneurs dating back to the creation of the family seed company in 1903. He's carried those lessons throughout his 20-year career as an advisor and investor. Jim has played an active role in a multitude of agricultural businesses, including operating experience with the Brazilian unit of the family soybean business and a farmland syndication business, which he co-founded. Today, he is founder and managing partner of Open Prairie Ventures and invests in ag tech businesses with disruptive technologies. Open Prairie Ventures is a venture capital firm focused on investing in early growth stage Midwest-based companies in the agri-tech and life science sectors. Stay with us. We'll be right back to talk with Jim Schultz. We're back. You're watching One-on-One. Our guest today, Jim Schultz. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this day for a long time. I sure appreciate you coming on the show today.
Well, it's my pleasure. I'm glad to be here.
You bet. I was teasing you a little bit, like to start with the easy questions. Where were you born?
I was born in Effingham County in the small community of Totopolis.
T-Town.
Yes, T-Town as we affectionately call it.
That's great. And growing up in T-Town, what are some of your earliest childhood memories?
You know, it was a community where you knew everyone and everyone knew you, so there was a different level of need of respect, and that's a lesson learned from life that I carry today, that you respect everyone as your neighbor and treat them as your neighbor, whether you agree or disagree with them.
Yeah, I just love these Midwestern values that we pick up as we go along, and I think much of the country and much of the world could benefit from them, but you know, we sometimes take them for granted, but yes, that's what we just grew up with that way. I remember talking one time with your brother Jack, and he said that he started in kindergarten and went all the way through high school, and there was only 2 kids that weren't in the same class. Yes. Either had moved away or 2 kids that moved in. I can't remember, but I thought that was outstanding.
It really is.
And those kind of things don't happen as much anymore today as they should. But I'm just curious, when you're growing up, I'm particularly interested, you know, in Effingham and the families down there, and I joke a lot that there's something in the water down there, but maybe you picked up something along the way. Are there childhood memories that stick out that you know, that were seminal for you? Was there anything that, was there a mentor or a teacher or anything like that, as you were growing up, that made an impression on you?
I know we only have a half hour today, so I have so many great people I was introduced to over my lifetime. But you know, I was fortunate. The family I grew up in, I was the 6th of 8 kids, and my parents taught me to fight for what I thought was right, and to fight for things that were meaningful, and to sometimes let go of the fight to do what was right. And so being the 6th of 8, I learned to negotiate at an early age, more mentally than with my fist, because the other 5 siblings older than me would not allow me to push my weight around. Sure. However, that being said, my parents were clearly instrumental in being mentors in my life, and 2 sisters were extremely helpful. I have an older sister, Jane Herman, who was kind of like a mother to me in many ways. So that was meaningful. And then my older sister, Ann, who's a year older than me. Sometimes she tells people she's a year younger, but I want to make sure, since we're on tape, that I correct that record. Ann was...
Careful, she's going to see this.
She's going to see it. And Ann was a voracious competitor to me in everything we did, from academics to athletics. And so it taught me to be humble. It taught me to be acknowledging of competition, but also to understand how to compete with someone. So that was another mentoring experience.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great stuff. I remember having Paul Tapman on the show one time, and I didn't realize it, but he grew up with 11 brothers and sisters, and he said just getting, you know, something to eat at the dinner table was a negotiation. So I understand. Well, what about college? Where did you go to school?
Yeah, I was fortunate. Again, my parents encouraged us to pursue academic levels of higher and higher levels. I did my undergraduate work at Southern Methodist University with an undergraduate degree in entrepreneurism. At the time, back in the
Really?
70s, it was only one of 2 schools in the country that offered that type of degree. Subsequently, I went to DePaul University in Chicago and completed my JD at DePaul. 3 days after graduating at DePaul, I moved to Northwestern and finished an MBA at Northwestern University. So very, very fortunate to have had the opportunity to go to multiple schools.
Wow, fantastic, yeah. Well, and I know, from the intro, we talked about you were one of the founders, or certainly worked with the family in this operation, this ag operation in Brazil. When did that happen?
In the 70s, my father and brother purchased farmland down in Brazil, and prior to that, I cut my teeth loading grain cars and bagging soybean seeds on the third shift, and the things that weren't very fun, but I got the opportunity to go to Brazil and help clear the land for the first planting of soybean seeds back in '77.
And how big was the farm?
It's about 4,000 acres that we cleared in the
goodness.
first planting in '77.
Who would have thought? Well, I guess, are they on an opposite cycle to us, or are they the same?
Yes, they plant in November time frame and harvest in typically the March, April time frame.
So was that your dad's idea, that maybe he could keep a continuous supply of?
I think that was a combination of my brother Jack and my father's idea that there might be an opportunity to plant seeds and bring them back to the Midwest for the following season planting.
Wow.
That was the impetus for it.
Wow. So how long were you down there?
I was there for 3 months, and then subsequently I went back down for 8 months and worked in São Paulo, learned the language, took courses, and
Really?
Became somewhat
That
proficient.
was my next question. Did you learn how to speak
I did.
Portuguese? They speak.
Not very well today anymore because I've forgotten most of it, but had the occasion to spend 8 months there working in an environment where no one spoke English, so it forced me to learn the language in a very positive way.
What an incredible experience.
It was, very much so.
That's great. Well then, so how did you, from there, where did you go? I mean, did you go back into business working for someone, or how did you progress from there?
Having grown up in an entrepreneurial family, I knew that that's what I always would do, Alex, but I knew also it'd be helpful to learn something about organizational structure and systems, so I went to work in St. Louis for 2 years in the commercial banking business and spent 2 years learning what it means to be in a 1,000-person organization and the politics of big business. And in a sense, it's not a huge business, but 1,000 people that became somewhat political at times. So learned a lot about the culture of a larger business environment, which today I use in what we do to make sure we build the right systems and the right cultures and things like that with the startup companies we're involved with.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so then that brings us to Open Prairie. How did you get involved with that, and when did you start that?
I give Mark Andreessen credit for Open Prairie Ventures.
Okay.
Mark Andreessen started a company called Netscape and claimed that he could not raise capital in the middle part of our country.
Yeah, because he was right here in the U of I.
Right, and so when he took Netscape public in '96, that was the inflection point for me to say, we have to figure out how we can capitalize and develop companies here in the Midwest by having the capital available for them from a startup nature. So we launched our fund, raised the capital in '98, and started investing in '99 and 2000 with the first fund. And we have a second fund that we started in 2008.
So when you launched the fund, started everything, what were the businesses that you decided to invest in?
We had a footprint focus to do university-based research technologies. So some of the companies that we invested in here locally include companies like EpiWorks, Innovative Security Solutions, EyeSight, so companies that have technologies and opportunities to take the university research and develop that into a commercial application.
Wow, that's fantastic. I'll imagine you get plenty of business plans and things to look at from time to time, maybe a stack every morning when you get there?
It's a fairly fluid process. We receive about 600 business plans a year.
Wow.
And fund on average about 3 of those plans.
Really?
So it's a pretty intense and scrutinizing process
wow,
to
just
select.
I think just going through the business plans would be a task.
It really is, and I think largely what we've become disciplined in our business is focusing on where we think we can add real value, so it narrows what we'll look at, and it becomes much more largely focused on agricultural technologies at the highest of levels, the input level versus maybe the production level as an example. So we're much more disciplined in what we'll look at as far as an investment.
And what's your average investment?
The average investment we do is about $2 million in the front end and about 4 to 5 all in over the period of time as the company matures and develops.
So now you mentioned eyesight. I have to ask because that is being hailed somewhat as a big success story here locally, and you were involved in that.
We were fortunate. Gary Durack came to us and sought out our capital, and Dennis Beard, my partner, was involved with leading that organization, and Gary did a fantastic job of building Eyesight into a global company and got the attention of Sony Corporation to where Sony acquired the company last year in December.
Yeah. So, and when they make that acquisition, that's also your exit strategy?
Yes. You know, typically we want to see it through an M&A transaction, a merger and acquisition transaction where someone acquires the company, and that's been the most successful exit path. We have been fortunate. We had an IPO, in an initial public offering of a company called Tomotherapy. It was a cancer research technology that we took public back in 2007. Interesting, just quick story on that. I was in Silicon Valley.
Hold it right there,
because we have to.
Yeah, I want to hear that story. I absolutely do. And any others you want to share about these companies, we have to take a short break for our sponsor's sake, and then you can fill us in.
That's important. Good.
Okay, great. We'll be right back. We're talking with Jim Schultz.